this is another episode of Moderate Voices. Today we're actually going to be discussing something that is not...
The miracle that happened in Dallas.
Yeah, I am unaware of where it happened, but we will
In
be
Dallas.
discussing... We will be discussing...
The other side of the screen doesn't watch sports enough. That's his problem. But the miracle happened in Dallas.
I am aware that UConn women had an extremely long win streak going, and that it was getting to be...
It was approaching Wayland Baptist University's Women's Queens length, victory length. They might have reached it next year.
So they're upset defeat, and it was an upset. I don't care what Mississippi State says. Their upset defeat at the hands of Mississippi State in the second to final round. And so
it was in the Final Four. It was the Final Four matchup, the national semifinal. They were defeated.
Finals, they were defeated, and I felt, and Chuck agreed with me that this, as an event on a national scale, that this was large enough of an event that, you know, even though it is sports related, and I am not.
And my friend on the other side of the screen doesn't like sports for whatever reason. I don't know.
I'm not a very big fan of sport, but we should discuss, you know, how big of an impact this is. Having never been part of a win streak myself, you know, and most of the conversation is going to be handled by Chuck, as I really don't particularly care for sports. I do watch sports for entertainment purposes, but
for those of you out there who understand, Jason's one of those weird men who actually doesn't like sport. I know. Nobody believes it's possible, but it's real. And he's from Oklahoma, which makes it even less probable that he would be like this. You'd think he would like some sport, but no.
Actually,
although just at one point he did like sports. Somewhere in the past 10 years, he got disenchanted. Which is why you should have watched this Mississippi State win over the UConn women, man. It was huge. So did you see the clips from the game?
I did see some of the clips from the game. The favorite network that, you know, handles sport all the time definitely was airing the clips from the game, and, you know, they were definitely covering the game, and it was on Friday, so I was at work, so I actually had access to a TV that had that particular type of programming on it. And, you know,
too, by the way.
What?
Your computer has the ability to stream games. No. That it certainly does. That's how I watch things. I stream them.
I do not have an account that allows me to stream sports. Most other programming I can stream, and I am one of the people. Honestly, it comes down to when I cut the cable. You cut the cable,
yeah.
And sports programming is one of that segment of programming that I just kind of had to make a conscious decision. It wasn't important enough to me to pay a monthly fee to see.
We're supposed to talk about this game. So first of all, the game was really well played. I don't know if you noticed, the women's game is now in 4 quarters, so it was pretty tight through all 4 quarters of the game. They changed that up the last couple of years where there are 4 quarters of play. Are you on board with that, Jason? Did you learn that? Did you know that?
I was aware that they were going to that. I thought they were going to be going to that with men as well.
Usually the men follow the women when it comes to this, which is odd, but yeah, they'll probably go to the men. We'll probably do it in a couple of years.
It's not as odd as you think. They use the women's game because they do not value the women's game as highly, and I'm discussing the NCAA. They use it to roll out experimental things, and if it works, then they roll it out to their money ship.
But so anyway, so the 4 quarters are really close. I mean, the game went to overtime, which it probably shouldn't have gone to overtime. Mississippi State probably should have won in regulation. But then the way they won in overtime, first there was the silly, crazy foul that occurred to let Connecticut tie the game up. Then Connecticut had the ball with the chance to actually take the lead. They make a mistake. Mississippi State gets the ball back, and the little point guard, the little bitty girl, she just jibbers around.
I did see that. She's like 5'6" or 5'5".
Yeah, it's the bitty thing. She just makes a move to the basket, hits a floater, knocks it down. I mean, it was a great play, way to end the game. Historically speaking, I mean, UConn have won 114 consecutive games, longest streak in major level of men or women's collegiate sport. As I mentioned earlier at the beginning, The longest streak is around 130-something games, 136 or something like that, by the Wayland Baptist University Flying Queens women's basketball team, which has more wins than anybody else. If Connecticut continues to win at the rate they're winning, they'll catch them by like 2030. Because the Queens had a good year this year. They won like 26 games. So, it's going to make it tough. Anyway, as far as what it means significantly, people look at women's basketball, and I do. I mean, that's my thing. It's not very balanced. I mean, you have what people hope from this is that it shows that women's game is going to be balanced. I actually think it shows how unbalanced the game is, because it wasn't just a big upset; it was a shock of an upset.
Yeah, it was a shock.
It was akin to a 14 seed or a 15 seed beating a 2 seed in the men's basketball tournament. That's how big of a shock it was. Mississippi State was a 2 seed. They weren't considered a bad team, but that's the level of upset it was for them to beat Connecticut. And that's what it's like. That's the gap between a top 10 team and UConn is equivalent to like a top 100 team and the North Carolina Tar Heels that won this year in the men's basketball. I mean, that is just huge. So just really kind of actually, it's like the last time they lost 2.5 years ago, all it did was spur them on to go on another big long winning streak. And I don't think it's actually going to help women's basketball. I wish it would help with recruiting, but we'll see. It always is fun to have somebody lose who's on a big streak like that. Of course, Mississippi State didn't go on to win the national title because, they'd already won the national title. So they showed up in the national title game and just kind of phoned it in. They phoned it in against South Carolina, but it's okay. They were tired,
Well, I do know emotionally getting a team in 2 days to come down from the high of beating essentially the king, and then say, well, no, we have another game to play. Coaching, that would have been a very difficult job to get them psyched up for their next game.
On a kind of a similar style note, that's what makes the 1984 Miracle on Ice so impressive. When the men's hockey team beat Russia, they then had to turn around and beat Finland for the gold, and they did. Similar situations, like they beat a team, it's like, huge upset, and nobody expected it to happen, and they still were able to turn around and win. That's what made that an even more impressive feat, because usually this is what happens: is you win that game 2 days later, you're just not there emotionally, you're tired, taxed out. I just had to bring that up. I love the movie's great. I don't know how I was alive. I remember the guys screaming it's Miracle or whatever. I actually watched that game with my dad. I don't think Jason did, as you can tell by his look on his face.
You've met my father, right?
Yeah, I've met your father. He seems like he would like hockey. It's your fault.
No.
No, I'm just saying, it's your fault. If you said, Dad, let's watch the Olympics, your dad would have been like, okay.
Yes, we've probably been watching. Okay, this was Winter Olympics, so we wouldn't have been watching dressage. But we've probably been watching, the marathon biathlon or whatever they call it, where you ski and shoot. And
that's exciting, by the way. I am looking forward to that next year. I love that. The 30 kilometers? You ski for a while, you drop down, you shoot, you ski some more. And have you actually watched one of those, Jason?
Yes, I have.
They actually, when they miss, they have to run extra laps.
Yeah,
that'll motivate me to shoot well, because I hate exercise.
Well, it's not an extra lap per se, but there's an extra loop that if you miss a shot, you have to go around the extra loop and then continue on with the course. Yes, I have actually watched that, and either side of that would be difficult for me.
But back to our original concept. Congratulations to Mississippi State. I mean, that was a big win, huge win. What it means for women's college basketball, I don't think it'll change the sport that much. Honestly, the landscape. If anything, it shows how the landscape is severely skewed. I don't know if there's a way. The only way to change the landscape is to have a bigger pool of exceptional talent of women.
That's kind of what I'm sitting here wondering, because you're saying it's not going to change the landscape. Is it the athletes that they have options of? Is it because the athletes in the top 1 to 5 programs are so much bigger, better, and faster than everybody else?
Yes, it really is.
So that's a difference in the women's game versus the men's game. Is
Well, the
men
difference
athletically are more similar than otherwise, and your phenoms that could dominate basically go to the NBA without going to college.
Well, they go a year in college, but the difference between the top, the 1 year, one and done NBA talent, and people at other teams isn't as big of a gap. Experience plays a big role. So what happens is you've got the situation with women's college basketball. They don't do one and done. So Connecticut gets probably 3 of the top 10 recruits every single year. Which doesn't sound like a lot, but after 10, there's a big drop off over the next 50 from the top 10 recruits in women's basketball. So they get 3 out of those 10, and they stay for 4 years. As Gino Auriemma said after the game, it's like maybe our young girls are going to realize that it's not as easy as they thought. He was starting, I think he was playing 5 or 6 freshmen. So they're going to win for the next 3 straight years.
Yeah, because if they stay in college.
Because they don't go anywhere. And they're just going to get better. Because he's an exceptional coach. I mean, it's one thing, is like he is a really good coach. He really knows how to coach the game, and it's clear that he gets them to play at a high level. He also gets the top talent, and they stay for 3 or 4 years. So every now and again when they lose, it's with a team that's predominantly freshmen. They lose their game, and then they run the table for 3 years. That's what's happened the last 15 years.
So there's no real way to competitively change the landscape to make it fair, because
there's not enough women's athletes to.
He is coaching the game and playing the game, and apparently from the sounds of it, if they're staying in college for 3 to 4 years, they're also graduating, so they're getting.
There's really nothing inherently wrong with the setup. It's just that there aren't enough players, no matter how good other coaches are. Yeah, 3 minutes. Okay. For those of you out there who knows, when he holds up 3 fingers, that's not the Boy Scout sign. That's him trying to tell me, wrap it up, man.
I'm just saying
he's
that
for the clock.
For a time scale.
But so I don't know. It's still. So basically, what that really means is over the next course of time, beating Connecticut at any juncture in time in women's basketball is as good as winning the national championship, in my mind. If you can beat them in the regular season or in the playoffs or in the postseason, you've climbed the highest mountain you can climb in women's basketball until they start losing on a regular basis, which, looking at the past 15 years, that doesn't happen. String of 70-plus wins, followed by a string of 90-plus wins, followed by a string of 100-plus wins. What's next? That's the last 3 win streaks they've had, Jason.
And they didn't exactly have back-to-back losses in between them, did they?
No, they did not.
So that, yeah, they are.
Most games they've lost in a season since like 2000 is 2. I think there was one season they lost 3. That's it. That is a dominance on a level that just doesn't exist in any other sport. And it's not just basically when Gino Auriemma retires, maybe other people will get to start playing the game, because basically he recruits better than everybody else. But it's not just his recruiting; he is a really good coach. Because as you've seen in the men's game, just being a good recruiter, John Calipari at Kentucky, doesn't guarantee you this level of consistent. You're the best, period, all the time.
Because even in the football side of it, you definitely, he's a good recruiter, but he doesn't do anything with the talent that he gets.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my thing. I think that it is still impressive to talk about. Anytime you end a streak like that, that's big news.
All right. Well, that is our take, or honestly, that's Chuck's take, because I don't have a take on it. And this wraps up our opinion of the UConn defeat. And we're just looking forward to their next win streak. So
I'm thinking about 130 this time. They've added 20 every time, so 130-ish about is the next one. They'll actually pass my Flying Queens here win streak. I'm kind of not looking forward to that fact, but it'll happen.
All right. See you.
See ya.